to share with you the theme, and I know that those that have come before me have done justice. I am normally told, since I came to Nakuru, not a day passes before I'm asked whether I'm related to a postdoc Kibani. And the other day I took something on his account, and he said, "You come to pay." So when you are asked to pay something in town, just pay. There's no so I'm Kirira, Presbyterian moderator, and I have my co-moderator. We are two here in Nakuru. Reverend Wahome Kaidri, Tumshagiria Kibero is I'm in the west, he's in the east, but he has given me the privilege of studying before you. The team from PCA Kaidri, PCA Ote is Imami, Tumshagiria. I have my son. Kuja tu hapa karibu. Karibia kidogo na ukimbia you are young. This my son. Just wave to them. Thank you. So I'm a person who doesn't want to be bombarded with questions. And one time I was asked to name the source of river Mississippi geography, and I did know the source. I come near River Shania, so I cancelled the question and wrote River Shania, and I said it comes from Abadias. So when the presbyter gave me this topic, I also decided to change. And the change that I have, I believe that I'll try to answer this question. The question that I made, but not far away from the question that I was given. When the foundations are being shaken, what can the righteous do? Then I decided to change the question a bit and ask myself, who are we? Because you see the righteous, who are these righteous? Because unless you understand who this righteous person is, I knew I would be before pastors, apostles, who shall exegete the text very well, so you bear me with that. So I asked myself, who are we? And before we know what we need to do, who is this righteous person? And I went to the book of 1 Kings, chapter 18, there about Elijah and the prophets of Baal and the prophets of Asherah. And I remembered my mathematics teacher, who would say, if one person would do ABCD, how about so many people? Then I asked the presbyter, how many people are we expecting? About 500. And then I did my mathematics a bit and said, if one man would stand against 850 prophets, how about 500 righteous people? Then I did again, my mathematics was coming to 425,000. No, you should have clapped for that. Because we are the people that God is asking, what can we do? So these righteous people, I looked at them and said, surely, number one, we are the chosen people. We are the chosen generation. Because we are the people that God is asking, what can we do? And the good thing about the English is not about if we can do something. It is about what can we do. Not exactly, because we must do something. So number one, we must realize who we are. Because when you know who you are, Elijah was able to stand against the 850 prophets and the danger they are in, because he knew who he was. The bishop who spoke before me spoke something that really should be in our hearts, that when we take our rightful position, I wish he did not share that before me, because I shared the same experience, a similar experience when I went to just one time and queued and said, never again will I ever do that. So we need to ask ourselves, who are we? Because the Bible is calling us the children of God. And who we are should not end with the songs that we sing. Because we sing that we are the chosen generation. But do we really carry that with us? Is it coming from our heart? Do we truly believe that we are that? So my question led to me to answer that question, that we are the chosen generation. When we look at what we have been able to do, read the book of Matthew 18:18-20. That where are two or three are gathered, in my name, like we have done today. That what we shall bind here on earth shall be bound in heaven. And what we shall agree here on earth shall be agreed on in heaven. When you listen to the lamentations that we are making, then I think we are forgetting who we are. Because when we meet in the name of God, then whatever we desire for this country shall come to be. And I believe that, as one of the apostles said here, that we cannot undo the prayers that we did. No, we cannot undo it. We shall say that we are the people that are going to determine the course of this nation. Because we are the chosen generation. We are the people who can bind and it shall be bound. When we think of the text of the book, the Bible in the book of Philippians chapter 1 verse 6, what does the Bible say? It's a verse that we know that he who started the good work shall be faithful to finish. So we must remain faithful as children of God. And finally, the fact, think of 2 Timothy chapter 3, and I think that is where the problem is. That when we forget who we are, what remains in us is only a form of godliness, but lacking in power. But we must recapture that power. We must come back and become who we are. And therefore, the first question is answered, who are we? We are the chosen generation. Pastor, you will forgive me, but I'll try at the end to answer your question. What can the righteous do when we know we are? Number two, we must understand the time and the times that we are living in. We must understand the times that we are living in. Which times are we living in? Somebody talked about the Gen Z. Somebody talked about the influence of the politicians. Those are the times that we are living in. I grew up when apostles, prophets, prophets were really revered. They were really respected. But today, we must understand that we are living in a totally different generation. When I saw what was happening the other day in the Jesus Winner Church in Nairobi, then I said, surely I lamented in my heart that now the things that were happening can happen in the church. You may think it is happening far away from us, but I think when the name of any church is in danger, you are also in danger. I was just asking myself, what if we are used to wearing the attire that I'm in? What if I was passing by that place when that was happening? They would have said, these are the people. Before you cannot exonerate yourself and say, I am not. So we must know the times that we are living in. As I said about Apostle Kimani, of course, I met some good people that said that they were congratulating me for joining them in our wedding. So I told them, do you have something for him? I can take to the deeds. But I'm asking, if I am caught for something that he has done wrong, then I cannot exonerate myself. Of course, I had said he's good, he's my brother, blah, 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 when I had not bad things. But what I'm saying is that we must stand for the Church of Christ. Not for your denomination, not for my denomination. We must stand for the Church of Christ. Because the times that we are living are hard times. When we hear that one of us has been caught in whatever he or she has been caught in, it is the time for us to go down on our knees and pray for that person. The time is gone when we are so divided in the denominations that we cannot come together and pray for our country. And I want to tell you for sure, if only we could be united as a church, the Church of Christ, I know for sure the country will shift. So let us understand the times that we are living in, because when we understand the times, then we can change the way we are doing things. We cannot afford to do it the way it was being done when the church was church. We must align ourselves with the will of God. We must take our rightful positions. Because when we don't do that, when we are compromised, then our voice is gone. We must stand in the times that we are in and the space that we are in. I was looking at it in 4 ways. The times that we are in. One, it is when we are enjoying in God. When we are enjoying and we are enjoying in God, we are happy and God is happy with us. And that is the ideal time. I wish it could be. But again, there are times when we are happy and enjoying, but outside the will of God. I hope you are getting me on that. There are times that we are happy, but it is outside the will of God. We immediately to be very sensitive to such moments. And it has happened in our country when we have prayed for governments and government has been established, and then we go back to our normal life. We forget that we need to sustain the government that we have prayed for with the prayers. I remember the year 2000, around there, when we were so excited that, our country has had a very peaceful transition and the government has come in place, and I think we went back to sleep. Because we started enjoying, but was sitting within the will of God, I don't know. Number 3, it is when we are suffering, but suffering within the will of God. I don't have time to talk about Job. We only rush to the last bit where we talk about the double portion, that we shall receive double portion. But then, have we walked through the suffering in the will of God? Because every suffering does not come from God. At times, it is the last one that I want to talk about. When you are suffering outside the will of God. When you are suffering, when you are responsible for the pain that you are going through. Again, you can read the book of Judges, where when the Israelites were in good books with God, they enjoyed. But when they were not, then they were suffering. Are we understanding the times that we are in? When I look at the lamentations of Habakkuk, when Habakkuk was lamenting that how can you let a nation that is more wicked than us to judge us? But that God is God and God is sovereign. So we also need to ask ourselves, before we point fingers to our politicians, we need to ask ourselves, which times are we living in? Could we be going through what we are going through because God is judging us? We need to ask ourselves that question. May God help us to really understand the times that we are in. Number 3, we need to ask ourselves, what are we? Okay, the question was, what can the righteous do? But I want to extend that question a bit. What are we capable of doing? What can we do? Yes. But what are we capable of doing? Can I give us some examples of some people in the Bible who can, who could, and who did, and were able to do that? Think about Nehemiah. If we were to speak in the language of the Gen Zs, we would talk about Kujituma. No, Kujituma. Huh? Anyway, I don't know in English whether they have a fashion for that. But, setting yourself, But we need to ask ourselves, is it the high time that we really ask ourselves, what are we capable of doing? Because when we are here, and I'm happy again with the bishop, when he said that God has put you responsible where you are. God will not ask you for what he did not give you. If your church is 10,000, praise the Lord. If it is 5 people, praise the Lord. Actually, God is talking about 2 or 3 people. When 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, Nehemiah was alone. But again, Arijituma, he sent himself if that language is right. And because he wanted to know what is happening to the body of Christ, what is happening to the church. He did not first of all evaluate himself to see whether he can, but he believed in God and went on. It is a high time that we as Christians rose up and believed that we can. Not waiting there, but now setting ourselves. We have realized as leaders in Nakuru that there is a problem. There is a problem. And as a church, we must come and say that our country is our responsibility. But we also appreciate that the foundations are shaking. Do we just keep quiet and wait for it to come from elsewhere? Think about people like Jonah, who are sent, but then instead of going, they did. We have people who are like that, who have lost the purpose along the way, who have lost the course. We must go back to the basics. But the most enjoyable of it all are the 4 lepers, who say we cannot sit here and die. At times when I'm praying for the whole world, thinking about Sudan, Southern Sudan, and the other Sudan, DRC, Congo, Ukraine, Russia, Palestine, Israel, at times we think that those things are too far from you. But one thing that we must realize is that when we keep quiet, these things are coming nearer and nearer. Now, like a country like Kenya, which is on one side we are bordering Sudan, on the other side we are bordering Somalia. Surely we know that we are at risk when the other nations are in problems. So we must be like these lepers. And we know we shall need to know that the question was, what are we capable of doing? I want us to go back to the question. These lepers, They could, and they were capable, because the situation was so desperate that they had it. Let us not wait until we must do something. For now, it is what can the righteous do. A time will come when the question shall be, what will the righteous do? Because they must do something. That time came for the lepers. And I also thank God for the lepers, because surely when they decided to take action, we know that the sound of their foot was magnified until the nations, the nation that they were approaching felt like, think about felt like a whole army was coming against them. What are we capable of doing? I want to use a negative example in the Tower of Babel. And if you don't brief anybody else's testimony, brief God's testimony. Because God is saying that if these people are not stopped, they can. Actually, I make a joke and say, were it not for their wrong motive, would not be dying, would be walking to heaven. Because they were building a tower to heaven. But then I look at it in terms of what they were capable of doing. God himself said they can. And that is the same testimony that is giving about us. That we can. We can. You may be asking yourself, you are not even known. You are not even known by anybody. But the 4 lepers were not known by anybody. And they were capable of doing what they did because God used them. So the question was, what are we capable of doing? I can give so many examples. Think about the widow of Zarephath. I think that is my daddy in terms of what we are capable of doing. My church, which is Presbyterian, is a church that is run through courts. And I always tell my people, surely, if the prophet came to my church and was supposed to be praised somewhere to put up, the widow would not have had the opportunity of hosting him. I don't see anybody suggesting that we take that person, the prophet to the widow. But then, look at what the widow was capable of doing. So we must be willing to part with the little that we have, our little contribution. And surely we shall be able to change this nation. My final question is, the question was what can? But now here we are. We cannot just come here and say what we can do, but we must live here with saying what shall we do? What will we do? We must take personal responsibility. Because we know the good things that God started, He is faithful enough to see them to come to conclusion. Because God is waiting. God is waiting for us to release the little that we have. God was waiting for this widow of Zarephath to release the little oil that she had, the little flour and the little oil, to use the little that she had. For a miracle to happen to sustain them for all those years. God is waiting. If you read the book of 2 Corinthians 7:14, it's a common verse that we know. If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves, blah, 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 then I will heal the nation. And these are the people. We are the people. I hope by now we know who we are. Then you shall help me answer the question that I was asked. Think about now the second, the prodigal son. Again, when we say, could we be suffering because we have moved away from God? Could these, solutions to the problems of the church, could they need to start from the church? Can a figure be pointed against us? When I see my people suffering, I first ask myself, as a shepherd, can a figure be pointed against me? Because for sure, I have a bigger responsibility than any other person in my church. I ask myself that question. So we need now to get to the moment of the prodigal son and ask ourselves, could we also need a moment of reflection so that if we have moved away from our God, could we need to come back to our God? When it comes to the issues of taking our positions in the country, my favorite prayer is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1 to 14. Of course, I fear moving from verse 15 because I want to stop at the blessings. But then for sure, if you read verse 1 and 2, then you know that there are terms and conditions. And we need to go back there. Because when we are begging, for example, begging from politicians, begging from others, then we must ask ourselves, Is it that we are not following that statement? Where God is saying, if you shall obey the commandments that I'm giving you today, then I'll lift you up high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall follow. They shall even overtake you. You shall lend to many and borrow from none. At times we must, not at times but always, we must know who we are. Then maybe somebody who comes after me shall answer the question. I have not told you who you are. God bless you so much.